Welcome to KeepItReal Studios, the only channel on YouTube that keeps it real. We've recently just embarked on a new year, and this past Saturday we had the first official big pay-per-view of the year, UFC 311. And overall, this card was stacked from bottom to top, and we had amazing stoppages, amazing wins, and just memorable moments to remember. And can I just say, even though this card did have its twists and turns and its controversies, it still managed to deliver, and it still managed to keep us fight fans invested in what the UFC has to offer for the rest of the year. Just focusing on the main card, we had fan favorite Kevin Holland going up against Rene the Ritter, a high level anticipated matchup. Whenever Kevin Holland steps into the octagon, win or lose, fans are always excited to see him perform. But he was actually going up against a very high level contender that a lot of people kind of slept on in the build up to this fight. This fight really showcased Rene the Ritter's high level grappling. He took down Kevin Holland in the first couple seconds of the fight, controlled him and dominated him. Although I do have to mention that Kevin Holland did an amazing job fighting off the hands, but however, the Ritter's high level grappling came into the show that night, and he still managed to get the first round submission. To the second match on the main card, we had Jailton Almeida versus Sergey Spivak. And this match was shocking. We actually tend to see a lot of interesting grappling sequences throughout this match. Especially for heavyweights, they did an amazing job grappling. They showed amazing reversals, and both fighters seemed to have improved from their last fight. Once the fight eventually got back on his feet, Jailton Almeida definitely showed his power. He landed a huge punch that hurt Sergey Spivak, and he just managed to capitalize on him and get the finish. The next fight on the card, we had a light heavyweight bout between Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. In their last two performances, they went up against the champ, Alex Poetan Pereira. Both fighters did come up a little bit short with devastating knockouts to the champion, so each fighter couldn't afford to lose their next match. Once the bout started, you could already tell that these two boys wanted to take each other's heads off, especially Jamal Hill. I felt Jamal Hill was trying to use a lot of his power just to kind of knock out Yuri Prochazka. But the thing is, Yuri did seem to evolve. He does seem to have a little better defense. His head movement was really on point, and that's what Jamal Hill kind of messed up with in the first round. He was over swinging, he was trying to knock his head off. Don't get me wrong, he was landing a couple clean shots here and there, and he did seem to crack Yuri at moments. But Yuri still has one of the best chins in the light heavyweight division, and Yuri managed to get a big knockdown with a straight left on Jamal Hill to kind of elevate him to win the first round. Focusing on the second round, it was a bit similar to the last. These two fighters were still swinging at each other and having crazy exchanges in the pocket. We really got to see Yuri's unorthodox style, just having a lot of flying knee attempts and just throwing a bunch of different head kicks. But Jamal Hill's experience did come in handy, and he managed to swerve out of the way. We ended up seeing both fighters eye-poking each other, with Yuri eye-poking Jamal Hill first, then Jamal Hill eye-poking Yuri. But it did seem that Jamal Hill's eye-poke on Yuri did have the bigger damage. But however, Yuri Prochazka is such a true warrior, and he does actually embody that samurai spirit, and he wanted to fight on. It did look like he wasn't even fully recovered yet, but he still wanted to have that battle. But however, Jamal Hill definitely seemed to have a second win in the second round. He was looking a lot more technical. He started aiming for the body more. He slowly started working down Yuri. Yuri's mouth started to bleed, and he definitely started to slow down too as well. So towards the end of the second round, it definitely looked like Jamal Hill definitely got more points, landed the better shots, and looked more active than Yuri did. Going into round 3, it definitely seemed like both fighters were 1-1 each, so round 3 was definitely going to be the deciding factor of who was going to be the winner of that night. And I definitely have to say Yuri did put it on Jamal Hill in this round. His head movement still stayed amazing, he had very good timing, and you could definitely see Jamal Hill was already fatigued. He spent so much energy not only in the last round but in the first round too, especially just trying to take off Yuri's head. But Yuri's chin was intact the whole fight, and he definitely evolved not only in his head movement but also in his footwork and his distance management, and he somehow secured the victory against a good fighter in Jamal Hill, knocked him down multiple times, and eventually got the finish and won the fight. The next fight on the card was for the Bantamweight Championship of the World. It was between Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. And overall, this fight was highly anticipated. In the build up to the fight, it did seem that Merab was trying to duck Umar, but eventually he accepted the fight. And it seemed like there was a lot of bad blood, and these two fighters did not like each other at all. On the day of the fight, these two fighters seemed to have a lot of respect for each other. They were both coming off and starting out slow. Nothing too crazy was happening in the first round. It did definitely seem like Umar was the better striker at the beginning of the round. He did manage to have a huge right hand that wobbled Merab, and Merab was definitely not going 0 to 100 real quick like he usually does in other of his fights. When the second round started, I truly felt like that's when the fight really began. Both fighters were managing to have wild exchanges. Nothing crazy landed, but however, you could just see these two men trying to take each other's heads off. Umar did have amazing takedown defense against Merab, and he was reversing him multiple times and getting his own takedowns. Merab really came out aggressive. He was overswinging a little bit, but you know, he's the machine and he just kept trying and trying till he could get to Umar. But Umar still managed to stay composed, move out of the way, and retaliate and use his own speed and strength against Merab to get his own moments in the fight. The third round began and I truly felt like it was kind of a 50-50. Especially at the start, you know, Umar did start off a little bit better. He still had the momentum of the last two rounds. He was the one mixing it up in the striking. You know, he had amazing knees and he was just doing a little bit more work than Merab did. Merab was still trying to go swinging like crazy, trying to take Umar's head off and just eating all of Umar's big punches. He did have a nice takedown here and there in the third round, but Umar's wrestling was still very good. You know, he had a lot of takedowns of his own, but even Merab started to have better takedown defense as the fight progressed on. Then I truly believed halfway through the round, that's when Merab finally started to fight his own fight. I felt like he truly became a little bit more comfortable. He started showboating a little bit more. Then he was having a little bit more success against Umar, and that's why I truly believe Merab won towards the end of the round of round 3. As we got into the fourth round, I truly believe this is when the key difference started in the matchup. Merab's takedowns were just crazy. He has insane pace, and it seems to be like as the fight progresses on, the more cardio Merab has. His pace was insane. You could definitely see Umar starting to fatigue. Umar was kind of fighting off the back foot while Merab was trying to walk him down at moments and just still kind of showboating and taunting Umar and just getting more takedowns and just managing to get the fourth round victory. When the fifth round began, you could definitely see Umar was a little bit more fatigued. He was a lot more tired and Merab looked like he had 10 more rounds in him. Umar still had amazing defensives, but he wasn't still as strong as he was earlier in the round. He was walking Umar down left and right, you know, he was cornering him, amazing takedown defense, and he even got his own takedown towards the end. So Merab truly showed that he's championship level. He truly showed the skill gap that he has in the bantamweight division, and he managed to secure the victory in the fifth round and prove to everyone in the world why he is the #1 bantamweight champion of the world. So originally, we're supposed to have Islam Makhachev up against Arman Tsarukyan. And these two have actually fought earlier in the past. And this was actually Arman's debut in the UFC. They were both much younger and inexperienced at the time. And to this day, arguably, a lot of people think Arman Tsarukyan was Islam's toughest matchup. So all fans were truly excited to see these two run it back. But unfortunately, at the literal last minute, Arman Tsarukyan had a back injury and had to pull out of the fight. We had to have Beneil Dariush and Moicano's fight scrapped up, and Moicano was put up against Makhachev. And you know, this Arman Tsarukyan and Islam Makhachev fight has been on the build-up for many months now, so a lot of fans were looking forward to seeing this matchup. And a lot of fans were also looking forward to see Beneil Dariush returning back into the octagon. I feel like out of all the fighters, he was the one who was screwed over the most. You know, sometimes you tend to forget that a lot of fighters, they leave their families, you know, they have to kind of put their life on hold to go train, shift their mindset, cut weight, and imagine doing all of that and not even getting a fight. However, Beneil Dariush is still a humble man, you know, he's still a very patient dude, and he was willing to just wait and see what plans UFC would have for him in the future.
I come back to my room, I'm working on rehydrating. Ollie comes in and he's like, hey, listen, man, they're giving it to Hanato. And I understand because, you know, he's coming off of wins. He's got a really good shtick right now. And you know, he's loved. Let's just be honest. He's a fan favorite. And so they're going with Moicano, and I was like, all right, I get it. He's like, but you know, don't worry about it. They're gonna take care of you, obviously, and stuff like that. And I genuinely appreciate that. I really do. I have a family. I need to support them, and so I genuinely appreciate that. But you know, fighting is still fighting. I'm still a kid when it comes to fighting. I really do enjoy fighting.
When focusing on the champion's perspective, Islam Makhachev, he didn't seem to mind too much. This has happened to him countless times, and he does have that warrior mentality. He said whoever wants the smoke can come get it. It doesn't matter who, it doesn't matter when, as long as they make weight, Islam is opening to fighting everybody. And I truly believe that Islam is the true embodiment of a champion, and we need to see this happening a lot more in the UFC. Now, diving into the main event of the night, we had Islam Makhachev versus Moicano. And overall, this was just an absolute dominant performance by the champion Islam Makhachev. As the fight started, nothing crazy was happening. There was a moment that where Moicano kind of knocked Islam down, but it did look like Islam was a little bit off balance, and it was nothing too crazy. I don't even think the judges fully counted that as a knockdown. But once Islam got back up, he got the takedown of Moicano, and from that moment on, it was game over. They were in two completely different realms. And the thing is, Moicano is actually a very high-level grappler and has amazing submission game too as well, but it just seemed to be a huge skill gap when Islam took him down and immediately subbed him and got the victory. Islam showed to the world that he is truly the best, the #1 pound for pound, and he broke the lightweight record of the most title defenses, and he just showed to everybody that he's a force to be reckoned with, and he did seem like he's going to be champion for a very long time. If I had to give this card an overall rating, I'll probably give it a solid 8 out of 10. Usually I like to give cards a 10 out of 10 if the main and the co-main can deliver. However, the main card was kind of underwhelming. Not to the fault of the champion or even the challenger as well. You know, I felt like we went from such a high level card with Tsarukyan and Makhachev just to kind of go down a little bit. It was a little bit underwhelming, and not to take away from the rest of the card, because I truly believe we had a spectacular card even in the prelims too as well. But you know, the main event was a little bit underwhelming and it was kind of such a squash match. So, you know, it just kind of make it 8 out of 10. But overall, still a very fun card. I still enjoyed my moments. Definitely one of my favorite fights on the card was definitely Umar versus Murad and Jamal Hill versus Yuri. So overall, still a very fun and exciting card and an amazing way to kick off the year in 2025. Overall, those are just kind of my thoughts and how I feel about UFC 311. So I'm just very happy about this card overall. It was still very impressive, a lot of entertaining moments, a good way to kind of kick off 2025. But kind of let me know how you feel about UFC 311 in the comments below. What are some predictions for the next couple cards that we have in the future? What are some of your fantasy matchups of 2025? But that'll be it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching, and don't forget to keep it real.